Before you get rid of something because you're just not feeling it anymore as it is, think about what else it could become. I'm Refashionista Sheri, and I show you how to use what you have to make what you want in the easiest way possible. And how do I know it's the easiest way possible? Well, that is because I didn't even start sewing until I was 38 years old when I inherited a very vintage sewing machine and taught myself how to use it. So I know if I can do this, you can do this. So today I want you to grab those items from your closet, from your pile of linens that you're just not feeling anymore, and we're going to transform them into totally different items that you will want to wear all of the time. So let's get making. Don't think pants have to stay pants. Do flip them around and refashion them into a funky top. All you need are a pair of wide leg lounge pants or culottes or gaucho pants, or whatever the heck you want to call these things, that have an elastic waist, and of course your sewing gear. Okay, so when I was just kind of playing around with this to see how am I going to refashion it and make this into a top, a really silly idea came in my head. La la! What do you think of my adorable one-shoulder Bodycon mini dress? Seriously, when I was trying to figure out how to make this into a top, I just got it in my head, hey, the legs are so wide, let's see if I can pull one over my body. And it worked. And then this here is the waistband, but now it's the neckline. And this is the other leg, and now it's the sleeve. And I think this is really giving off, 1970s Charo vibes. And I'm definitely aging myself with that reference. I folded the lounge pants in half, and as evenly as humanly possible, I lined up those seams, and now I'm just going to go and chop out a very small semicircle from this sticking out corner crotch area here, and then I'll go try it on and see if I need to chop out any more. So there you can see exactly how much I chopped off, and I did take about 3 passes of the scissors to get it to the length I wanted, and after each chop I just tried it on and decided if it was good enough. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna do is go bind this up. And if you're not sure about how to bind your hems or your necklines, I shall link down below for you to the Fab free tutorial that's available over on my blog that shows exactly how I bind my hems. And my gorgeously bound collar is now finished, so we can finally go try it on and style it up. Don't dismiss doilies as outdated decor. Do stitch them all together into something you'll actually wear. And here's my delightful DIY doily top from 2013. It is so simple to make, but it is absolutely amazing to wear. So all you need is a loose-fitting top, a whole bunch of doilies, pins, and of course your sewing machine. So lay your loose-fitting top on a flat surface, and then all you have to do is puzzle your doilies together. So you are in essence just creating the general shape of your template top. And then once you have everything all laid out nicely, simply pin it all together. And this can be quite time consuming, but trust me, it'll be worth it in the end. Then hop on over to your sewing machine, or you can hand sew this if you want to, and set your machine to a tight, wide zigzag and stitch all of those delicate doilies together. Then all you have to do is repeat the whole process to create the back of the top, and then piece the front and the back together, making sure that you leave armholes, a head hole, and of course the bottom hole. And as you can see, this has lasted for many, many years and many, many washes. It is still going strong. It is absolutely stunning, and I definitely have to make another one of these. Don't let a frumpy dress hide in your closet. Do refashion it into an awesome new coat. Your fantastic vintage dress, and this should be maybe a size or two too big for you. just so you can wear it as a coat and your clothes will fit underneath it. If your dress has a back zip, then go ahead and remove it carefully with your seam ripper and then stitch up the open edges. And then go ahead and chop straight up the front of the dress to create the front opening of your soon-to-be trench coat. Create a quick and easy coordinating belt for your trench coat by simply chopping off the bottom hem of the dress. And then all you got to do is simply hem up those raw edges, or do as I did and bind them up with a contrasting trim. Give the bottom a nice clean hem, pop it on, throw on the belt, and your fancy trench style coat is complete. Don't assume that home textiles belong only in your linen closet. Do see the potential in every type of fabric. All you need are 2 decorative pillowcases that you think will wrap around your body comfortably when they're stitched together, plus a shirt to use as a template. So I grabbed one of my decorative pillowcases and I'm going to flip it inside out so I can have access to this seam here that is holding all of this together. The ruffles, the lining, absolutely everything. And now I'm just making sure that the ruffle is all tucked to the inside, and then I'm simply going to go and chop off this seam here all the way around that is holding everything together so I have everything in its individual pieces. So now I have 2 perfectly matching rectangles of fabric that are fully lined and quilted, plus all of those ruffles, when I chopped them off, of course, they became unruffled. So now I have 2 incredibly long lengths of this silky satiny fabric to use for embellishments. So I have my 2 rectangles of fabric placed together with the right sides facing, and I also remembered to make sure that I have this quilted design facing the same direction on both sides. Now I'm going to fold it in half as evenly as possible. It is satiny, so it's quite slippery. And then this folded corner here, I'm just going to pop a pin in to mark it so then I know that this is the center so I can create my neckline. Now I'm going to grab my top and lay it with the center of the collar pretty much lined up with the center of the pin. And as I always say, perfection is the enemy of good enough. And this top, when it's done, is going to be spectacularly good enough. Now I'm going to mark with a pin a few centimeters away from the underarm seam of the top here, just for seam allowance. And because this top is really stretchy, but this fabric isn't super stretchy, so I want to give myself at least another centimeter of breathing room if I can. Okay, and next we're going to grab the pins again and mark up here the shoulder seam as well, and the collar, just for fun, the side of one of the collars there. Now I'm going to go stitch from the bottom up to the underarm mark, and then I'm going to go stitch down from this pin here from my collar all the way down to the side here to create the one side of the collar, shoulder, and top of the sleeve seams. This is definitely turning out to be one of those just trust your Refashionista brain projects, I think. So basically now I have like a vest shape. So here's the armholes are here, there's the bottom, and the head comes out here. But this is really too high, and because it's so bulky, it's just uncomfortable. So I'm going to fold this in half as evenly as I can, like so, and then I'm just going to do a gentle kind of curve chop out here to create a bigger neckline. And as always, I am going to cut less than I think I might need, because then I can always cut more if necessary. So this is the neckline chopped, and it definitely needs some more because I'm still feeling quite strangled here. So I'm going to go chop off some more, and then hopefully it's going to be nearly done and we can start embellishing it. As you can see, I did chop out more from my neckline, and I made the front few centimeters lower than the back, and that totally solved my problem. Now I'm gonna grab one of those long lengths of satiny fabric that used to be the ruffles on the pillow sham, and I'm gonna press it till it's all nice on with a very low iron, of course, because this is probably gonna burn with a hot iron. And then I'm simply gonna go and bind up all of my raw edges on the neckline, the sleeves, and the bottom hem, and then it's going to be done. Don't pass up that cool old tablecloth. Do see the garment that it can become. So I have borrowed one of Frau Ingeborg's military-style 80s dresses here to use as my template. And as you can see, I took my lace tablecloth and laid it flat on the floor. I mean, we're just getting an approximate measurement here, so nothing has to be perfect at all at this point. And I then folded down the top edge and kind of guesstimated where I wanted the length to be. Then I laid the dress on top with the shoulders lined up with that folded edge, and I think I guesstimated here pretty good because I do want it to be a bit longer than the dress, and I do also need some seam allowance. So now I'm gonna go chop off that excess fabric there. So you should now have 2 pieces of that lovely lace tablecloth. So you can set aside the smaller piece for now. We will need it though, because it's going to soon become our sleeves. Alrighty, so now grab your large piece of lace tablecloth and fold it in half, then lay it on a large surface. So you want your tablecloth to be laid out with the edge that's going to be your neckline at the top, then the folded edge on the left side, and the open edge on the right side. Next, you want to grab your template jacket and fold it in half with the front facing to the inside. So the fold should be on the back of the jacket. Then you want to lay it on top of your folded tablecloth with the collar lined up with your neckline edge and the back fold lined up with the fold in the tablecloth. Now, this jacket is a little bit tight on me, which is why I have given myself a few extra centimeters here for the back of my lace duster. Next, grab a couple of pins and just mark the top of the sleeve and down here, the bottom of the sleeve as well. Then you just want to chop through both layers of the tablecloth between your pin marks. Now, I always like to go a little bit further in from my pin marks because, as I always say, it's better to cut too little than too much. So now at this stage, I highly recommend going and slipping your arms through these freshly cut armholes here just to make sure they are the right size. And if they're not, then just, open them up a little bit more. I'm not really one for a lot of measuring, but when it comes to this, I do break out my tailor's measure and I just measure the length of my armhole there so I know how wide to make my sleeves. And it's about 23 centimeters. So to get the length of my sleeves, I'm just going to measure the sleeves of my template jacket and add a couple of centimeters for seam allowance. So just start right up at the shoulder seam, go all the way down. I have my sleeve tubes created, chopped the fabric to size, then simply stitched them into tubes and chopped off any excess fabric, and then, flipped it right side out, and my sleeves are done. So now let's go attach them. So because this doesn't really have a right side or a wrong side, how I'm going to insert my sleeves is to simply have this bottom sleeve seam here facing the bottom of the armhole. I think that's, the easiest way to line it up. So I have my seam, I have the bottom of the armhole, just line those up together, arrange everything nicely, and now I'm just going to go stitch it all up and repeat on the other side. Don't believe that one piece of fabric can only be one thing. Do transform it into a 2-piece set. All you need is a piece of fabric or a huge tablecloth or a big bed sheet that is large enough to wrap around your whole body from your shoulders down to your ankles, as well as a shirt that fits you loosely and has the basic style that you like to use as a template. As you can see, for my first step, I laid the fabric down on the floor and then I folded down the top until it got to about the length that I wanted my top to have. Then I placed my template shirt on top and made sure I had a few centimeters of seam allowance there. And now I am just going to go cut the fabric to size. Okay, so you can see here that I have my marks where I need my neckline to be, and I actually took it in about a centimeter on each side. So now I'm just going to cut a really easy slit right there because I'm not exactly sure the shape I want my neckline to have, so I'm just going to basically cut there so I know where I want to have it. I have chopped my little neckline area here on the top fold of my fabric, and I also took the time to mark out the side area of my template top onto my fabric. So you can see it's kind of like a reverse L shape here, and so I'm just going to go and stitch along all of my pins to create the kind of side seams and sleeves. And as you can see, I did go ahead and I've already chopped out the area of excess fabric where I stitched it. And now all I have to do is fold my fabric evenly in half and use this side as the template for this side. So I'm going to go and do that. And then we're going to try it on and see what else we're going to do to this top. So I actually don't have to hem up the sleeve cuffs because how I cut it, these edges here were actually the finished edges of the fabric. So yay me, but I do have to finish off the bottom hem, and you can see here I just did a really simple circular cut neckline, so I'm going to finish that off too, so let's go do that. So I went ahead and just did a really quick and easy hem on the bottom of my shirt and on the neckline. And, you know, it doesn't look great. The neckline actually looks pretty... So one of my greatest Refashionista tips ever is cover it up. Grab some trim and simply go ahead and cover it up. That looks so much nicer. It actually stands up nicely. Like I said, putting the double layer here really gave it a lot of structure, which is wonderful because this is a very light fabric. So I can't wait to get it on and see what it actually is going to look like. But the bottom also looks fantastic. And I did have enough left over that I put a bunch all around the sleeves as well. So now I have my top finished. Let's move on to what we're going to do for the bottom part. So I have this rather large square of fabric left, and it very comfortably wraps all the way around my body. So I think I'm going to make a cool matching maxi skirt. And again, it's a square, so it really doesn't matter which way I fold the right sides together. But once again, I want to utilize this finished edge. So I'm going to have one of the finished edges at the top and the other one at the bottom. And I'm just going to fold it with right sides facing, like so. And then stitch these chopped raw edges together to create a very long, wide tube. Okay, that is now all nicely stitched together. So now I'm just going to fold the top bit down to the inside because I'm making a casing for my elastic waist, just, you know, the simplest way to do a waistband, and that should be fine. So just gonna pop a pin there so I know the width. Okay, I have my elastic waist all inserted and finished off, and I popped on the skirt and chopped to the length I wanted it, and then of course I went ahead and finished off the bottom hem with some more of that lovely vintage trim. So now we can try it all on and style it up. Don't get rid of something just because you don't wear it anymore. Do refashion it into something that you'll wear all of the time. All you need is a bathrobe with a belt and your sewing gear. So the very first thing you need to do is remove the belt and set it aside for now, but we will need it in a minute. Then put your robe on inside out and decide how short you want your jacket to be. I want mine to be quite cropped, so I'm going to chop it kind of just above the pockets where the waist area is. I still want to be able to use these interior ties though, so I will be cutting it below those. Then fold it in half, inside out, as evenly as possible. Now, bathrobe seams are super duper thick, so you can just kind of line them all up and it makes life a lot easier. And then finally, go ahead and chop it to your desired length. If your robe has belt loops on the outside, then you can just go ahead and chop those off because they're not going to be needed. So next, I'm just going to do a really small, quick hem on the bottom here, just to get this raw edge up and out of the way. So now I'm just going to fold my belt evenly in half and then chop it. So now I have two equal pieces of the belt. So I have one piece of my belt here, and I'm going to take the chopped edge and place it right on the edge, like about 2 centimeters in from the edge of the inside of my soon-to-be wrap coat. And then I'm just going to fold that up and pin it in place, and then repeat on the other side. Now I have both of my belt halves pinned in place. I'm just going to fold up that bottom edge there and then go stitch it all together, and then I'll have my wrap ties in place as well as a lovely clean hem on my jacket. So I just went and tried it on, and I actually don't need these interior ties here, so I'm just gonna chop them off and then we can go style it up. Don't decide something is useless just because it's outgrown its original purpose. Do make it into something that's useful for you today. To create this absolutely awesome Salute to Gen X dress, all you need is a light and airy baby blanket or regular blanket or tablecloth or curtain that fits comfortably around your body, plus a sleeveless shirt to use as a template. So what I mean when I say it needs to wrap comfortably around your body is that lengthwise, this is a rectangle, so I'm going lengthwise here, and I need to be able to put it all the way around my body like this and have some space. This also is like down to my ankles, and you know, I'm wearing super baggy clothes and I can fit it very comfortably around my body. All right, so for my first step, I have my blanket folded in half lengthwise with the right sides facing, and then I'm simply going to stitch the longest open side together to create a very big blanket tube. Okay, so once you have those open edges stitched together, you'll have something that looks like this. And you absolutely want to try it on and make sure you can easily slip it on and off over your head, which clearly I can. And you see there is that seam now, which is going to be the back seam. And those are simply those two open edges that I stitched together. Now let's go figure out how we're going to turn this tube into a dress. I feel like a wiggly worm. I've now decided which end of the tube that I want to be the top part of my dress, and I have it laid on a flat surface with that center seam going evenly down the back. So all I did to do that was just fold it in half and then make sure the center seam was in the middle and then laid it down. Very, very easy. So I'm simply going to center that on top of my blanket tube. And again, I'm just eyeballing things here. So here are the edges of the sides of my template top, and I'm just going to mark that area plus about a centimeter, I guess, onto my blanket tube at the top edge here. And now maybe, I don't know, that looks about even to me. So I'm just going to fold it over. Yeah, that's totally even. So now all I'm going to do is stitch from my pin down to the edge here to close up this section and this section. And then that will leave me with an opening for my head hole. And then we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so I have my template shirt once again laying on top of my fabric tube, but this time I have the collar seams lined up, and I'm going to use the shoulder seam as my guide to create some proper shoulder seams instead of just guessing and sewing. I'm actually going to do it properly. Okay, so just popping a pin here right at the edge. So now I know I can just stitch from my collar seam down to my pin, and I'm going to create my lovely shoulder seam. Okay, you can see here I have both of my new shoulder area seams done, and that looks much better. But you might be thinking, it's still squared edges, and what the heck, this doesn't look like a dress. It's going to. I promise, I think. Anyway, I think this is going to work. Okay, so now this actually makes it even easier because I can just line up those seams, chop out these sleeve holes right here. And then I'm going to create some sleeves to go in the holes. But as I'm chopping these out, I'm also going to get rid of this bulkiness up here because I have my seam there now. So if I cut that off, all will be well. So that's what I'm going to do. Look, that's looking more and more like a dress bodice, isn't it? Yay! Okay, so to make my life even easier now, I'm simply going to fold this side over to this side and use the cut side as the template to chop out the other side, and then we're going to create our sleeves. It's looking more and more like a dress, and I'm no longer trapped in a tube, but of course we have to create our sleeves. And to do that, all I'm going to do is shorten this to my desired length and then use the chopped bottom to create my awesome sleeves. I chopped the bottom, and then because the bottom was of course super fraying, because I mean this is crazy fraying fabric, right? I then bound the bottom first with some vintage lace, but then I was thinking, I don't like that too much. So then I went and I added more vintage lace. So here is the bottom piece that I chopped off, and it's going to become my sleeves in just a couple of minutes here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just chop it in half so I have two pieces. And of course I'm going to get rid of this thick bulky seam as well. So now I have two pretty equally sized pieces, and I'm just going to go stitch this raw edge together on both of them to create my two tubes that will then become my sleeves. So I now have my two lovely sleeve tubes completed, and I did go ahead and just kind of gently round off the top edge here because they were looking kind of manky, and I think it'll fit into the sleeve hole a lot better with a nice rounded edge. But that's all it is. It's just a tube of fabric. So now let's grab the dress and add the sleeves. Okay, so I now have my dress inside out, and I have my sleeve right side out. When I put the sleeve into the dress, the right sides will be facing, and then everything will be as it should be. So you can see here, I'm putting that curved edge up at the shoulder area, and then the side that I curved it down to be a little bit less wide is going to match up with the side seam, of which there isn't one, so that's great. Anyway, we're going to guesstimate where the side seam is on here, and then I'm just going to go stitch this together and repeat it on the other side. I know I say this all the time, and I know I shock myself all the time, but as you guys know, I didn't grow up sewing. I'm pretty new to this still, and every time I manage to figure out how to make something into something else, it shocks the crap out of me. But anyway, this is absolutely darlingly, wonderfully awesome. And it is so similar to a dress that I was actually coveting since the 90s when I saw it in one of my favorite Gen X movies. So let's go try this on, style it up, and do a little bit of a comparison. Which of these Refashionista results surprised you the most? I know for me, whenever I see something in my head, and that's kind of how it works for me. I see something and then I see what it can become, and then I just go for it and make it however I think it's going to come out. And when it does come out, I am always so shocked and so thrilled about it. I really love that baby blanket dress still. It is so awesome. And again, the lounge pants to a top. Are you kidding me? That was so easy, but had such an amazing result. But you let me know which one is your favorite, which one you are actually going to try to make. And if you want to go even deeper, I highly recommend joining my wardrobe revolution at refashionistasheri.com. And of course, subscribe for new Refashionista DIYs every single week. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I'll catch ya on the zigzag. For just 99 cents a month, you can help save a struggling Refashionista. For just 99 cents a month, you can help sustain the much-needed work that goes on behind the scenes. Every thrift flip, every DIY, every upcycle, every free tutorial can only continue with your support. Join my Refashionista crew for only 99 cents a month, less than the cost of 2 bananas or a pack of gum, and help me continue teaching anyone who wants to learn how to use what they have to make what they want. Don't let affordable, sustainable DIY style become an endangered species. Join my Refashionista crew today.
This is Confessions of a Refashionista.